Hey guys, back again with another video, a review on Paper Mario Color Splash. And this video might be a surprise to a lot of people because on Twitter I think I expressed my disappointment when this game was announced on like an E3 video, I think. Now, there were rumors before this that there was going to be a Paper Mario game for the Wii U, developed by Intelligent Systems, as always. And, you know, Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door are two of my favorite games of all time. Like, the Paper Mario series started off so strong for me. Thousand Year Door especially is like one of my favorite games of all time. And, you know, Sticker Star was a disappointment for a lot of people. A lot of people did not like Sticker Star, and it's one of those games that I enjoyed at the time, but after playing this game, I have to actually question why I even enjoyed that game in the first place. Because in a lot of ways, this game is like worse than that, but it has a lot of the same issues that that game has, and they're really hard to ignore. This game is really poorly thought out. It's the same thing with Sticker Star. And, you know, it was such a disappointment to me that instead of doing like a proper follow-up to Thousand Year Door on a console, another Paper Mario console game, you know, a nice full-blown RPG, like Mario RPG, they instead decided to double down on the mechanics of Sticker Star and how that game played. And, you know, focused on making the game more of like an action-adventure with like with still like an RPG-like battle system, but with no actual leveling up or gaining experience or anything like that. So to see that this is basically a follow-up to Sticker Star, when they announced it, it was extremely disappointing. I was very frustrated, and of course the game came out. It got pretty good reviews. This game is sitting at like a 76 on Metacritic, which I think is way too high. That it's absurd actually how well this game reviewed, because I'll say it right now, I did not care for this game. I think it's got parts of it that are really enjoyable, and I think there are some definite strengths to this game, but they're the kind of strengths that previous Paper Mario games have already had, and it's maybe better in some ways, which we'll get to that. And it's mainly with like the writing and the humor of this game, and I think that in that part of the game, it's a big step up from Sticker Star, which was kind of dull. There wasn't actually all that much dialogue to that game. It lacked a lot of like the charm and humor that even like something like Super Paper Mario had, and I wasn't a big fan of that game either. But yeah, it's definitely an improvement in some ways over Sticker Star, but for the most part, I was very frustrated with this game. I think it's got way too many horrible, baffling design decisions behind it, and the gameplay is just insufferable most of the time. But we'll get to that. Now, it's probably a surprise that I actually ended up buying this game anyways, but I figured I wanted to give it a shot, and I don't know, it's like the Paper Mario and the Mario Luigi series, it's very hard for me just to not get those games, because I love the older entries in these series so much. Mario and Luigi is another series that I think has gone downhill like crazy, like Paper Jam just sucked. And it's unfortunate, like two of my favorite series in gaming, Paper Mario and Mario Luigi, have just, like, seeing the decline of these series has got to be one of the most depressing things in gaming for me personally. But let's talk about the game, Paper Mario Color Splash. We'll start with the story. It's pretty basic, as with, well, actually, you know what? Thousand Year Door story was actually not that basic, but for here, it's scaled back compared to that game. Basically, Mario goes to this island called Prism Island, where basically a lot of like these characters have had like the paint sucked out of them, and the big paint stars of this world that kind of supply endless amounts of paint for the world have basically disappeared, and you basically have to find out where they went to and kind of save the island. It eventually becomes like a story where, you know, Bowser is involved, and, you know, he's the main villain of the game. Now, it's actually interesting, like, there's some actually clever little twists. The reason, like, the motivation for Bowser basically becoming obsessed with black paint, like, this is the big gimmick here, is that he's obsessed with black paint, and wants to basically color the world black. And the reasons for him becoming all black, he's like a black Bowser, basically, the reasons for that are pretty hilarious, and you'll discover them that later in the game. Now, one of the disappointing things with this game in terms of its story and setting, like the setting is pretty interesting. There's a lot of varied locales that you'll be going to, which is nice to see, but the game, it's like all toads. Like every character in this game is a toad. Whether it's like a red toad or a gold toad or a green toad, they're all over the place. the characters in this game are you know, the typical characters you see in the Mario universe, the typical enemies, you know, the Shy Guys, the Goombas. Even the bosses are characters we've seen before. They're the Koopalings, which, you know, are fun, but I would have loved to see new characters, like with the original Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door especially. And this is one of those things that, based on like an interview, like an Iwata Asks for Sticker Star, Miyamoto didn't want any original characters for that game. He kind of feels like the RPG game, like the Paper Mario series, needs to have just established characters that we've seen before countless times. And that is something I really wish that he wouldn't like ask that of like Intelligent Systems, because they're really good with coming up with like really unique, clever, awesome characters. The cast of characters in the Thousand Year Door are terrific. And here we just get, you know, boring Toads. Now, like the writing in this game is really good though, on the other hand. So it's not something that really annoys me, but it is a step back, I think. And this is one of the big improvements. This is one of the best parts of the game, in fact. The localization for this game is absolutely amazing. Like, there are so many clever jokes in this game, and the game made me laugh out loud at various occasions, which is something that I find is very rare with video games. A lot of the different scenarios you'll find yourself in are really quite funny. I don't really want to spoil a lot of them, but for instance, one section of the game, you're kind of following like a pirate ship with like these group of toads, and you're kind of moving from level to level, kind of with like these guys on the pirate ship and visiting all these different locations. And it's got like this kind of interconnected feel, where from like when you're going from location to location, which is really cool. There's also a train part where you're kind of like following a train and a crew of toads that are on this train, and you'll follow it from one location to the next, and then in one area it will break down, and like the whole goal of that level is to get the train back up and running, which is really interesting. One of my favorite things about this game was seeing what it would come up with next with its different locations, and being an island, there's a bunch of different cool locations, and there's some cool design actually that you'll kind of encounter. So definitely the biggest strength of this game is the overall writing to the game. It's very funny, it's very charming, and it's consistent. It's consistent from start to finish. It does have a few emotional moments too that I wasn't expecting. That they don't hit incredibly hard, but they were a nice surprise, I would say. But I definitely did miss like the new characters. But yeah, moving on, the positivity for this game is going to completely disappear now because we got to talk about the gameplay, and this is where the game is flat out terrible most of the time, I think. Now, like with Sticker Star, this is not really an RPG, and a lot of the mechanics are just poorly thought out, and we're going to go in depth with this review. It's probably going to be like a 40-minute review, I'm just saying now, because we're gonna get really deep into the gameplay with this game. So basically, there's a world map where you're moving from area to area, and it's not like Sticker Star where it was like World 1-1 and then 1-2 and then 1-3. That was kind of boring. I wasn't a fan of that in Sticker Star, but in this game, each location has its own name, and you're moving on like this world map from point to point. So it's not like a Thousand Year Door where I think I remembered like you kind of moved from location to location. There was like a hub world that you kind of would unlock shortcuts and things like that, which was awesome. Unfortunately, that's not the case here, but there is sort of a hub world. It's like the main town of the game. I think Prism Town, or Prism Port, I think it was called. Which is basically where you land when you start the game. Like you come in a boat, and this is where like the main shop is, and this is where there's like a cafe there too. There's a bunch of toads here, and this is where you collect the big paint stars and bring them back to this main area. So you'll be constantly going back to this main area, buying cards and selling cards at the shop. Which we'll get to the cards later, but the progression in this game, I actually like it. I think it is an improvement over Sticker Star, because I liked the different locations, and sometimes there's even some non-linearity where basically each location there'll be like 1, 2, or 3 different mini paint stars that you have to find, and if you find a certain paint star, you'll basically unlock the path to the next area, and finding other paint stars in that location might make a shortcut to an area you've already been to. And basically, some paint stars you can't access right away in certain levels. Like, you might need a new card. for instance, like a thing card. So you'll have to kind of backtrack to old locations, and that aspect of the game I actually kind of like. Though there are parts of it that are really annoying. And one of the annoying things in this game are like the toad hunt parts, where basically you'll find toads throughout these different environments. And they belong to like a group of like scouts, I think. So basically you'll find yourself stuck at certain parts of the game where you can't actually progress unless you gather a certain amount of toads. For instance, there's like a turnip stuck in a pipe in this one forest level. And to get it unstuck, you have to actually find 20 or so different toads to be able to pull it out. And they're scattered all throughout the different environments that you've already explored. And this can be frustrating. It basically halts the pace of the game to a crawl, and sometimes it's very hard to know where these missing toads are. Luckily, the game does tell you which levels have toads that you may have missed, and if you're missing some toads that are in levels that you haven't unlocked yet, it will tell you that as well, which is nice. And there's actually hints with like finding the different ways to go with this game. One of your partners with this game is Huey, who's like a paint can, and he follows you around. And if you press like down or up on the D-pad, he'll give you like these kind of vague hints, which sometimes they're really helpful, sometimes they're not helpful enough. And this game, it feels like a point-and-click adventure game at times. It can be very frustrating, and this is mostly due to the thing cards. And before we talk about that, I guess I need to talk about the battle system. I mean, the levels themselves, you're kind of you're kind of wandering around the battle system with your or the levels themselves with your hammer, and you're basically using this paint hammer to kind of paint parts of the environment that basically had their colors sucked out of them. And that's where a lot of like the puzzle solving comes in. The game, the main mechanic is using paint. You have like a main supply of paint, I think like red, yellow, and blue. And basically you use your normal hammer to attack parts of the environment, and you'll basically get paint from that. And you'll use paint in battle as well as to like solve environmental puzzles. There's like a cutout mechanic in the game as well, where you kind of look at the gamepad and cut out parts of the environment to kind of like, it's kind of hard to describe, but you kind of like jump to certain points. And basically, if you ever find yourself stuck playing this game and you have no idea what to do, 90% of the time it's going to be because you have to use the cutout mechanic in a very specific area. So that can be pretty frustrating. But yeah, there's a decent amount of exploration. Like I said before, each level is quite different from the next and has you doing all sorts of different things. But some of them are a pain in the ass and not designed well at all. For instance, one of the areas in the game that could have been my favorite and ended up being one of my least favorite is this inn area. It's like this blue inn, I think it's called. It's like a haunted inn. And you get there and you're basically solving the mystery of this inn. And it was really cool. I was, just discovering the mystery, going from floor to floor. It had like this nice horror theme going on. And I found about, I think like 4 of like the 6 toads that you need. You need to get all these toads and make them head to like this dining room area. So I found 4 of the 6 toads, and it was kind of, it took a lot of effort to get these toads. And it took a lot of time as well. And so I was going through the level, having a good time, and then all of a sudden, I ran out of time. There was a time limit that the game didn't explain to you whatsoever. And what happened is I failed, I ran out of time, and it booted me back to the world map. So I was like, okay, that's kind of odd. I wish they kind of made sure that I knew there was a time limit. They gave vague hints that there is, but not enough for you to go on, basically. So I entered the level again, and I had to do everything all over again. All these really long involved processes getting these 4 toads. I had to do it all over again just to get stuck again because I wasn't sure exactly how to get the other 2 toads. So I was running out of time, and I failed again. This was the most frustrating thing, and it completely ruined an otherwise awesome level. Perfect example of why time limits are so poorly implemented in games most of the time, unless like the game is designed around it. So that's frustrating. There's like another level that's really annoying on the pirate ship, where you basically have to like follow these certain directions, and there's like this cannon mini game, which the timing on it is really rough and it's really strict. What they require of you, like there's one part where you have to get like a bunch of coins. And if you miss just like one, part of this cannon thing, you fail and you have to do it all over again. Now, luckily, there's actually some interesting dynamic difficulty with this game where I kept failing this cannon sequence, and eventually they actually reduced the amount of coins that you needed to get past the section. So I do actually appreciate that kind of thing, and there's other instances of dynamic difficulty like that I did actually appreciate, but it was still annoying nonetheless. There was also a cooking mini game where you had to like cook this steak, and we'll get to that later. Why? Because it's like my least favorite part of the entire game, and it kind of brings up like the point and click adventure elements that this game has. But I had to talk about the battle system before I can talk about the thing cards. But yeah, this game does have a battle system. It's trying to be an RPG, sort of. And this is one of my big complaints with the game. Like, I don't even know why this game needs like this turn-based battle system, because it's pointless. Like with Sticker Star, it's completely pointless. You'll see enemies in the world, and if you hit them with your hammer, you'll get like an initiative attack or whatever. A lot of the times, the enemies are hard to dodge too. And basically, you get to a battle system. It's kind of your typical Paper Mario turn-based battle system, like with Sticker Star. Although, unlike Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, you don't have any partners or anything like that. You just have Mario. And you fight enemies with cards. And cards are a finite resource that you find throughout the environments. And enemies actually don't even really drop cards. Sometimes they'll drop like enemy-specific cards, which most of the time are kind of useless. But you gotta basically buy cards with like the coins you get. And when you fight these battles, you're using your finite resources of cards. You'll have like jump cards, hammer cards, and each of them has its own kind of timing-based minigame, which is fun. Like the battle system itself, it's pretty simplistic, but it can be enjoyable. The problem with it is the fact that it's pointless. Whenever you succeed in a battle, all you get are some coins and then some mini paint hammers. And these are kind of a new addition to the game where they basically increase the maximum amount of paint that you can have, which lets you solve puzzles. And then you can actually paint cards to kind of increase the strength of them. But that doesn't even actually come into play all that much, honestly, until like the end of the game. And most of the time, you're getting so many coins in this game that you can just buy cards that are pre-painted. And a lot of the cards you find are pre-painted, and a lot of the times, especially in like the first 75% of the game, it doesn't take a lot of paint to paint these cards. So the paint hammers you get that kind of increase your paint stock, it still doesn't feel like much. It doesn't feel like you're really earning anything worthwhile from these battles. And there's a main like feedback loop that's just not engaging, where you fight battles to earn coins, to buy more cards to fight battles, to earn coins to get more cards to fight battles. It's this loop that is just not engaging. It's not rewarding. And by the 25% mark into the game, I was actually actively trying to avoid battles because I had all these cards that I didn't want to waste, and I wanted to save them for the boss battles. And or like the battles that they force on you. And it's very hard to avoid enemies a lot of the times, especially when you're trying to get the different paint spots throughout the environments. So yeah, the battle system basically ended up becoming a chore and becoming the worst thing about the game, despite it being relatively fun. And the annoying thing about this is the fact that it's so easily fixable. You can still have a battle system with like the cards, the finite resources. It's still kind of annoying. I wish there was just typical, attacks like in Thousand Year Door. And the battle system is still similar to like Sticker Star, for instance, because it's basically the same thing here. Instead of stickers, it's cards. Here's the annoying thing. There are no stats in this game. Mario doesn't get more powerful in this game. You'll get more powerful cards later, but you're not upgrading your abilities in any way. You're not getting more powerful. And it's, an RPG, that's one of the main hooks. That's why you keep playing. The sense of power progression and the different and all the different types of customization. And this game has none of that. I really have to question why, if they're not going to make it an RPG, why even have the battle system? It doesn't make any sense. So one of the things I would do to fix this, and it would go a long way, but it wouldn't completely fix things. It still wouldn't compare to something like Thousand Year Door. But basically, whenever you beat a boss battle and get a big paint star, you get your HP gets increased by like 25, and that's the only way. At least in Sticker Star, you could find HP power-ups in the environments, and that was kind of rewarding in its own way. But in this game, it's just oh, your HP will increase whenever you fight a boss, which is lame. I would have had it so that you still gain experience, like with Thousand Year Door, and every time you level up, you can put points into strength, defense, or HP. Now, I mean, this isn't like this major change to the game, but it would help. It would maybe make the game a little too easy. Because one of the things with this game, there is some strategy involved with the different types of cards. Certain enemies will have like spiked hats on them, so you can't use the jump attacks. Certain enemies will like put out shields in front of them, so you don't really want to be using the hammers. So you gotta pick the right cards for different situations. But this can also be frustrating because sometimes you can run into enemy encounters where you might not have the right cards, or you'll have to waste really powerful cards because you don't have any weak ones yet left. And that, like, the whole economy to this game is just it's borderline broken, and it can create some really unpleasant situations. And then you have the thing cards. And this is one of the worst parts of the game. This is a carryover from Sticker Star, and it's something they could have improved or removed from the game completely. And instead, it's even worse. It's even worse than it is in Sticker Star. So this mechanic, basically you'll find different real-world objects throughout the environments. For instance, early on you'll find a fan. And you can basically take this fan and like squeeze it, and it basically gives you a bunch of paint and then turns into a card. And these are like very strong attacks that are really good at killing like multiple enemies on a screen. But it's a finite resource. You have this one fan card, and if you use it, it's gone. And basically, if you want to get it again, if you waste it, you have to basically go to where it was in the game. And sometimes that can be hard to remember where certain things are. Or you go to a shop in the main town where you can spend like 300 to like upwards of 1,000 coins to get it back. So this basically adds this trial and error element to the game, where a lot of the bosses, and the bosses are terrible in this game, they're awful. Every single boss basically has a phase where you have to use a specific thing card, and in some cases you have to use 2 specific thing cards in a certain order. So if you accidentally use like a thing card that doesn't quite work on the boss, you're gonna have to go spend money getting that back, and go back through the environments getting that card again, because you're probably gonna need it later. So every boss battle is this trial and error process of figuring out the right card you need. Now sometimes it's easy to suss out what you need, and other times like it's incredibly vague, and sometimes you're not even gonna have the card. There was an instance in this game where I ran into a boss and I didn't have the right card, and I had no idea. And the game didn't explain this to me in any way. So I basically ended up wasting like a lot of my thing cards trying to figure out what to do. And it turns out, I had no way of beating this boss. So I had to like I think I had to like run away from the boss. And then I had to like scour every environment hoping I would find the right card. It is so frustrating. This mechanic, it's like this point-and-click adventure style mechanic that has no place in this game. It had no place in Sticker Star, and it's more frustrating here. One of the more insane examples of this kind of shit and how terrible it is the stake part that I mentioned earlier. I'm gonna talk about this part because this is the worst part in the game. This part pissed me the fuck off, and it almost had me quitting the game. There was one point in this game, I think halfway through, at around this point, where I was about ready to drop the game. I was just not enjoying it, and I for the most part, I didn't enjoy this game, but I felt like compelled to finish it. I have a hard time leaving games unfinished, and I wanted to see it through to the bitter end. But this steak part, okay, so you get to like this place where you have to like cook meals for like a bunch of these toads, and you'll have to cook a steak for this VIP as like a second part of this mission. And the toads in the restaurant will give you like these incredibly vague hints of how you have to proceed, but they're not good enough. The hints are just not good enough. I found that they didn't help whatsoever. I had eventually used a resort to walkthrough because I was wasting so many coins and resources on this. But you run into like this steak that you need to cook properly for this VIP, and you get into a battle with it. And this is what you do. You have to do this exact specific order to get the steak to his liking. And if you screw it up, you basically have to spend 1,000 coins to get a new stake. So yeah, I hope you have enough coins, or you're gonna have to go and grind coins with like the rock paper scissors mini games that happen on the world map. Which I guess I'll talk about that briefly right now. There's a bunch of like rock paper scissors mini games that you can do across the world. Not fun. Rock paper scissors is never fun in any game ever. I don't know why that is always a thing. It tends to be in a lot of RPGs as well. But anyways, it's a good way to get a lot of coins. But it's just not fun, and it takes too much time. But if you need coins, that's what you'll do. It's kind of side content, but it's not engaging side content. It's some of the only side content in the game. But anyways, back to the stake thing. So the stake is in battle, and what you have to do first is use hammer cards to attack it and have it flip over a little bit. So it has 3 different phases. It stands upright at first. And if you use too many hammer attacks, or you use too many big hammer attacks, it will completely fall over. And then you fail, and you have to get a new stake, pay 1,000 coins, do it all over again. But if you hit it too little, and it's only flipped over a little bit, you fail again. What you have to do is use 1 exact hammer attack to get it flipped over halfway. So already this is ridiculous what they expect of you. But that's not all. You're not done yet. Next, you need 3 thing cards, very specific thing cards, and you have to use them in a very specific order. If you get the order wrong or use the wrong card, you're done. You fail. Do it all over again. Pay the 1,000 coins to do it again. So you better hope you have one of the cards you need. And I wasn't sure if I had the right cards anyways. So what you need to do is first put salt and pepper on the stake using the salt and pepper card. Then you have to use the charcoal grill card to cook the steak, and then you have to use a lemon card to put lemon on the steak. In that exact order. You do it in any other order, you fail. So that's what you have to do for this part of the game, and it was insane. I cannot believe this shit. And I actually had to use a walkthrough to figure this out because I kept doing this. I kept wasting these cards, and it always kept failing. And when I looked up the walkthrough, I was just like, what the fuck? This is absurd. And that's the kind of shit you have to deal with in this game. That's what the thing cards bring to this game. That's the trial and error type bullshit. Basically, it got to the point where every time I would run into a boss battle, I would immediately look up a walkthrough and see what cards I had to use. Because I didn't want to get into a situation where I get into this boss battle, weaken him quite a lot, and then just get to a point where I don't have the right card to progress through the battle, because it happened once and it was super frustrating. I had to use a walkthrough a lot in this game. I got stuck quite often because the directions weren't good enough, and there was just all like this point and click old school adventure game type bullshit in it. It's ridiculous. So yeah, there's a lot of bullshit like that, and between that and just the battle system being a complete chore, I dreaded getting into a combat situation in this game. I desperately tried to avoid getting into combat in this game because it was such a hassle. So it's really a shame because there is some fun to be had with this game. Like I said before, the writing's great. It's fun seeing what scenarios they come up with next. The characters that you do kind of meet throughout are fun. And the game does have some fun parts. Like some of the puzzle solving can be quite enjoyable. It's just everything around it is just so atrocious. There are so many bad design decisions in here. So many amateur design decisions. I just don't understand the core design philosophy behind this game. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, gameplay, not impressed, not good. In some ways, I think it's worse than Sticker Star, honestly, in quite a few ways. I'm trying to think what else is in the game. I guess there's not a whole lot else to say. I guess moving on to another strength of the game are the visuals. This game looks amazing. It's got like this. This is like the best they've done with like the paper aspect. One of the things with like the original Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, they didn't really use like the paper aspect to its full potential with its visuals. But in this game, everything is made out of paper or cardboard, and it looks great. I love the look of this game. Like I said before, the environments are extremely varied. The game is so colorful. Again, I kind of like the paint, the whole paint theme that the game's going on, even though I don't think it's all that effective in terms of gameplay. But in terms of the look of the game, It's amazing. There's all sorts of little cool details that I like. For instance, when enemies get wet, they have like this soggy look to them, which I thought was really cool. There's all sorts of clever shit like that with this game. It's just a joy to like just look at this game and to see what they come up with next. The way they design these environments out of paper, it's pretty amazing. The soundtrack is also really good as well, like the audio to this game. It's not an amazing soundtrack, but there's some really good songs here. One of the song that plays in Cherry Lake, one of the first locations of the game, is like this really upbeat, happy, catchy song that I really liked. There's some moody songs in this game too that I really liked. One of the worlds in this game has like a light world, dark world mechanic where you enter a pipe and go through like 2 different alternate versions of this area. And the music that plays in the dark world is like this really creepy, almost like reversed version of the original song. And I thought that was a nice touch. I always love that kind of stuff in games. So yeah, the audio-visual presentation is fantastic. It might be one of the best looking games on the Wii U. So that's another strength with this game. But yeah, I guess to sum it up, I was actually still disappointed in this game, even though I wasn't expecting much from it. And it's made me retroactively look at Sticker Star and just dismiss that game. If you go back to one of my old reviews, I reviewed this game, Sticker Star, on the channel, and I was positive with it. I almost want to just delete that video because after playing this, no, Sticker Star sucks too. And it really proves just how awful those design decisions were in Sticker Star. It's really a shame because there's a lot to like with this game. Like I said, the writing, the visuals, some of the scenarios you find yourself in. I just wish it was a fucking RPG. I don't understand why Paper Mario needs to be this weird action-adventure game with like this pointless battle system thrown in. It just doesn't make any sense. And from interviews, they've said that the Mario and Luigi series is the RPG series, and that's why they don't make the Paper Mario games RPGs anymore. But that's bullshit. Honestly, I don't buy that. I don't think that's a good enough reason. And Mario and Luigi, honestly, have becoming less RPGs as well. The recent game, Paper Jam, was just a fucking minigame compilation, basically. Which, like, ugh. Like, that game pissed me off, too. You'll remember my impressions of that game. But I actually at least finished this game, unlike Paper Jam, so maybe I did enjoy this game more, even though that game had a much better battle system, and it was still an actual RPG. You still leveled up and things like that. But yeah, this game, it's depressing. It's a depressing game. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your money. I'd honestly, even if you loved Sticker Star, because I liked Sticker Star a lot, and I can't defend this game. I just can't. It's just bad design decision after bad design decision, and it ruins the game. It ruins what's great about this game. The humor and the visuals can only carry it so far. And I did actually enjoy like the first 25% of this game, but I just started to hate it more and more and get frustrated with it more and more. The final boss I actually do like. The final boss is actually one of the few highlights to this game, but anyways, I have talked about this game long enough. A longer video and review than this game deserves. Maybe if you're curious, maybe if it ever hits $20, but it won't because it's a Nintendo first-party game. It's going to be expensive for a long time, and who knows? Maybe it will actually get more expensive than retail eventually. I don't know the way Wii U games are going. Maybe, but yeah, disappointing. And I gotta say, I think I'm done with Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. If this is the quality that you can expect from this series from now on, I don't care, and it's fucking depressing. But anyways, that's it, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.